It's odd to think that the Nintendo 64 is 25 years old now. That sounds like a lot, but I'm like 20, so it can't be that old. Despite the small game library and its outdated look, it's still an endearing console that is a joy to revisit anytime I get the chance to. I'd figure that there wouldn't be much new to talk about with the system, but it seems like every year some game is making its rounds with amazing discoveries, and that just goes to show how iconic this console is. With so many people being lovers of the Nintendo 64, there wouldn't be anything I could do that hasn't been seen already by millions and millions of people. What if I told you that I could though? Now there's a good chance that you've likely never seen this thing before, so allow me to educate you. This is the glove, one of the few yet fascinating accessories made for the Nintendo 64. It was made by Reality Quest, which is a company that is known for this controller and honestly, nothing else. As much as I want to bore you to death with information on the controller, there's very little out there discussing this controller in depth, but I'll do my best. The tech was being developed in the early 90s with the Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis in mind before moving on to the console we all know and love, the PlayStation 1. Yeah, it jumped on Sony's console first in 1997, and it was pretty heavily marketed as well. Quite a few magazines boasted about its amazing controller capabilities, and even a promotional VHS was made to talk it up as the next big piece of gaming hardware. It even showed up at the E3 show floor in 97, which is a pretty big deal. However, come the following year, the controller's hype flipped like a switch. 1998 is where we would see the Nintendo 64's version of the glove, but with a lot less marketing and even at a reduced price. It seems like the reputation of the controller lessened and kinda doomed the success of this version. As far as we know, only about 10 to 50,000 of these controllers were sold, which is pitiful when you realize that the rarest game on the Nintendo 64 has a similar sale volume, and that wasn't even sold in stores. After its release though, the glove and the Reality Quest company faded into the abyss of video game history, never to be heard from again. Unlike a very similar Nintendo controller known as the Power Glove, this controller never made any lasting impression on anyone, good or bad. It's just known as that weird controller on the Nintendo 64, which is probably more praise than it's worth. I think the only reason it has a novel status is because the Nintendo 64 wasn't the most popular and it didn't have a lot of cool experimental controllers. That's probably why you don't see anyone talking about the more popular PlayStation version of the glove now. So for what little it's worth, it's a pretty neat novelty. But this isn't a knick-knack shop. You saw the title of the video, you want me to play the funny Mario game. But where do I even start with this game? One of the best Mario games ever made, the big revolutionizer of all 3D platformers, still relevant in the video game culture after 25 years? Super Mario 64 really needs no introduction. This game is certainly synonymous with the console's classic status, but I think it applies to much more than the legacy. Super Mario 64 is the true proprietor of the console's hardware because the game perfectly complements one of the most important elements of any console, the controller. I know it looks silly, but this game would be one of the first devices to be able to play games in the third dimension, and Super Mario 64 was the ultimate playground for testing the technology out. In fact, the controller itself was built around Super Mario 64's 3D movement, and that design would influence not only what you would play with, but what you would be playing with any 3D platformer to come. That's the important note to repeat. Control in Super Mario 64 is super important. Not only was it important back then to be accessible and fun to players who never played a game like it, but to this day the controllers are easily one of the game's biggest strengths. Mario can easily spin and run around so smoothly yet snap into quick actions with a good amount of weight to them, allowing the player to feel in control of the game yet feel grounded in the physics of the world they're playing in. This makes pulling off quick jumps and dives in rapid succession very satisfying to do. Being able to quickly move on top of a variety of platforms is pretty much the most important layer of Super Mario 64, and that's why it's so fun to play after all these years. Now that I got that in your head, I think you could put two and two together. I take one of the most well-controlled Nintendo 64 games and combine it with one of the weirdest controllers for the same console. Seems like a brilliant idea. I think another big reason this idea fascinated me is how little it's been put into fruition. I can only count people playing this game with the controller on like one hand, and as far as I'm aware, no one has ever recorded themselves beating the game with the glove strapped on the whole time. The only time I saw it attempted was from Simply, you know, one of the best Super Mario 64 speedrunners, and he only got to 6 stars before giving up? Oh. Okay, as someone with no skill compared to him, that's quite ominous. I'm not gonna sell myself too short. I'm an advocate Super Mario 64 player. I'm a pretty decent speedrunner of the game myself, and I'm pretty determined to see the impossible become possible. Although this may be a video exploring what this controller is all about, it's also an attempt to see if the game is even possible to beat with the glove. There's only one way to find out, a 70-star playthrough with conditions like these, so I can experience nearly everything the game would have to offer to this controller without having to 100% the game. This will surely end well, won't it? Let's go! Now I think it's easy to tell how difficult this journey is going to be if you just take a good look at this controller. Look at what I have to work with. I want you to do me a favor real quick and pick up any video game controller right now. Get it in your hands and just get a good feel for how nice it is to hold on to. Now imagine duct taping that controller to your hand, because that is how the glove is designed. Strap it around your arms and scrunch your fingers around the buttons to have it fit like no glove you've ever worn. Speaking of those buttons, look how squished up they are. Not only is it hard to press them, but it's super easy to press the wrong button when they're so close together. This alone would be annoying, but it gets even worse. Guess how you move around with this controller? If you were like me, you would have assumed it was this small knob here, but that's the D-pad. Instead of an actual stick, you have to tilt the hand of the controller around in order to move whatsoever. You could say this would be like a motion controller similar to the Wii, but you would beg to be shaking the life out of that than spend any time strapped to this. But maybe it's better in theory than in practice? Let's get on with the game now. Bob-omb Battlefield is first and honestly the best course to start with. Having one of the only open-ended courses that's pretty safe to mess around in is a godsend with this controller. What is shown very clearly though is how much I can struggle with even the easiest of courses trying to get used to this thing. I'm getting tossed off cliffs by King Bob and losing lives to Chain Chomp like it's my first playthrough over here. But it was still an easy course and I got my bearings pretty quickly, being able to nab 5 stars, which is a great start, but it does worry me about the more condensed courses up ahead, which is something I immediately got a taste of in Wop's Fortress since it's the first platform-focused course in the game. Trying to rely on the controls to cooperate starts to be more of a hindrance once you have to perform jumps that require you to succeed or else face the wrath of falling constantly. Just getting up to King Womp on these rotating platforms was way harder than in the entirety of Bob-omb Battlefield. That's how wonky this controller was. However, it still is an easy starting course, and I was able to get 5 more stars for the total, so it's going pretty strong. I also took a detour to get the 2 secret stars on the slide. Not really much to discuss here since I could endlessly try it with no life loss. These 2 courses are honestly the perfect starting courses for this game, and this challenge made me realize that. For this challenge, it definitely lets me know that the trouble is going to be less in the bigger open-ended stages and more so the smaller linear stages. Or, you know, a water course. Jolly Roger Bay was absolutely not fun for the reason that spam clicking the A button with your dangly pointer finger instead of your beefy thumb hurts like hell. It doesn't help that you need to swim 90% of the time and the other 10% was like failing the cannon shot because aiming this thing is easily the worst experience. I didn't stay here for too long and only got 3 stars, but like, can you really blame me? I also went for the secret star in the aquarium, but that's enough swimming for me. I rushed right over to Cool Mountain and it was certainly better, which is shocking since you think ice controls would be a nightmare for this controller. But it wasn't. It mostly came down to the linear platform being annoying on some occasions, especially that wall jump star. Ooh! This took me so many attempts to do, I swear I would have melted the ice from how heated I got. Despite being easier than swimming purgatory, I only got 3 stars here since I think that last mission left a poor taste in my mouth. And that's the entirety of the main floor with 19 stars down, which is a strong way to start this run. But the real challenge was about to begin. Big courses of fun were one thing, but brutal platform gauntlets to the gates of a boss was another story. Bowser in the Dark World. The first of 3 boss courses that I would come to dread. Any of the platform heaviness I was complaining about before has been amplified since every platform here is either a thin line or simply moving all around, which is totally what I needed. Doesn't help that every jump has to be made over an endless void that I assume is the Dark World, so that's fun. Thankfully, my skill at the game is enough to outweigh the problems of the controller for the time being, so I can get through the course with little issue. But that is just the Dark World part of the course. What about our lovable cheese pizza looking menace, Bowser? I wouldn't say he's that tough of a boss, like any of the bosses in this game, but the issue that I would run into is that I could only beat him by flinging him into bombs. The only way you could do that is to rotate the stick very quickly in order to launch him into bombs. This is gonna be a problem. Thankfully, there's a bit of a workaround. As long as you get Bowser in the direction of a bomb, you can nudge him over there to blow him to Kingdom Come. Seems to be the only possible way to throw him into a bomb, so I'll take it. Bowser was down for now, and the main floor was clear.
Nice one. How are you gonna do the other ones?
Now the glove is a bit of a nuisance to use, that's pretty easy to tell, but I think that's only half the battle here. The challenge can only be as hard as the game you choose, and even though Super Mario 64 is not that hard of a game, the particular design that the game has in mind conflicts with the challenge as a whole. It's almost like I have to relearn the whole game to accommodate it, and it's just not the easiest thing to do on the fly, especially with no experience with this thing. Granted, I have played some of the earlier courses with the glove on before, but from here on out, I was in completely uncharted territories. That would lead to Big Boo's Haunt, which is luckily the easiest course in the whole game. With or without the controller on, this is an easy pick due to how small the mansion really is. The compact design really leaves no difficult challenge in your way minus the enemies, but they're really easy to deal with even with the messy controls. This course helped me add another 5 stars to my total, and I'll take that victory before I head into the depths of the basement. Although I did get an easy start by a lucky Mips grab and another star from Toad, I knew the curveballs would begin to be thrown when I stepped in the Hazy Maze cave. The puzzling design of this course made it seem like a nightmare with this control, but thankfully there were plenty of missions that didn't require too much difficulty. Sure, the Hazy Maze and the Hazy Maze caves killed me in a tase while being lost in the cave's maze, but it wasn't too difficult compared to previous courses. Only got 4 stars here because I didn't feel like dealing with moving platforms, didn't want to overstay my welcome. Now we're on to Leaf of Lava Land. This is one of the most unique courses, being on one flat square with many platforms to hop onto and get away with a ton of interesting strategies. It's also entirely covered in lava. Anytime I steer slightly off course now, I'm going straight into lava and most likely dying, which is pretty much every other minute with this controller. Now, if that was the only issue, I would move on, but no! These stupid bullies make this course even worse because they're always on you and can knock you into lava so easily. But eventually, I got past it and— Eventually, I got past it and left with only 3 stars. I was completely done with that course after being bullied around for so long. Thankfully, shifting sand lane was a lot more bearable since the regions of instant death were more barren than the other land we visited, and that made the missions pretty easy. Getting on the pillars was a little tricky, and I still really don't know how it works, to be honest, but it was totally worth it because I got to fight my favorite boss, IROC. I'm literally fighting a hand boss with a hand controller. Is that just not the coolest thing ever? With that out of the way, I added an additional 4 stars to my count, and then I remembered that I gotta do another water course. Actually, Diator Docks was one of the easier courses in the basement. Sure, the swimming was just as painful as before, but since the course layout was pretty compact, it was easy to go from one place to another without much of a hassle. I only got 3 stars here, but I'm happy I didn't have to stick around for too long. With 42 stars collected, we are nearly halfway done with finishing the game with this controller, but another Bowser course awaits me. I don't know if my controller was ready for it. I really don't know if my controller was ready for it. Yeah, so during this part, my controller bit the dust when attempting the course. It had this issue before in a minor case, but now it seemed like it was just dead for good. Looks like the only thing that was going to kill my run was not the difficult level design, but in fact the aging hardware of the controller. Okay, so obviously the run didn't end here, but it was very close to. I didn't have any knowledge of fixing old school controllers, and there weren't going to be any guides into fixing something this obscure, so what's a guy like me gonna do? I'll tell you what I did. I stumbled upon a page on Nintendo's official website on troubleshooting Nintendo 64 accessories, and they just told me to unplug it and plug it back in again. And you know what? It actually worked. Guess Nintendo really knows their hardware well. Now that the controller is working, I can finally do Bowser in the Fire Sea, which, in all honesty, I kinda wish my controller didn't start working again. It's basically Bowser in the Dark World and Leaf of Lava Land, courses that I had a bit of a nightmare time with. This translated with me falling constantly and burning so many times in the Fire Sea. You'd think that being launched in the air by lava would be a good save, but since it's so hard to aim yourself back on the ledge, it just feels like a slow burn. This frustration made me want to burn this controller too, but with how much I had to do to bring it back, I had to continue at this point. Eventually, I did get to Bowser for the run back fight, and I did not give him a slight chance to do his new attacks on me. I grabbed him, and I threw him into a bomb with enough momentum to make sparks fly out of my hands. He was toast, and the basement was cleared. If I didn't get those throws off. Oh. Grab him. Reaching the final floor of the game should feel super rewarding now. I mean, this is likely farther than anyone has probably gotten. But I don't really feel that way. I feel tired, and I feel like there's just more mountains for me to climb here. That's the big problem with doing a challenge like this. Eventually, the fun factor starts to wear off, and what you're left with is a mandatory chore. And when a game feels like a chore, that's when it stops being a game in my eyes. It's like trying to do an assignment on no sleep. You have to do it, but you have no care in the world to do it now, and it just feels like purgatory. This doesn't help that the courses here have pretty much all the various design problems I've mentioned before, just a little worse. Like Snowman's Land. It's pretty much a greatest hits of everything I've already discussed. Tight platform being hard to do, the cannon being terrible to control, a bully that could smack me a new one. It's pretty much all the same. Sure, there's these, wait, what are these things called again? Gonna need to look at my reliable sources. Ah, it's a spinning flower guy. Sounds about right. These spinning flower guys are annoying to land on without the controller, and with it, it's even worse. But I did find out I could ignore them with this well-placed trick in the corner. The only remarkable thing about this course is that it's the only course where I got all 6 stars in, so that's gotta mean something, right? Hopping back into courses, I go to Wet and Dry World, and this is a big repeat of challenges like Snowman's Land. Tirelessly swimming and landing on spinning platforms was nothing much I could get past eventually. It was just a matter of time and pain my hand was willing to endure here. I was messing up my wrist so much I thought I was going to form a ganglion cyst. With another 5 stars in my bag, I could say the most interesting thing about that course was how hard it was to stay on this platform without falling and missing the star. But if you want to talk about falling, then oh boy, this tall mountain monopolizing that field. If I sound a little more agitated now, that's because this course hit me harder than freaking lethal lava land. Not only are the pathways very narrow, but they're always ascending, so if I slip up, I'm falling. And I fell so many times. Every mission requires you to go high up and expects you to do a lot of high hops without falling, and it's just not possible with something like this. There was no way I can describe how frustrating it is to keep falling constantly like I'm the worst player in the world. It's so demoralizing to see myself die so much on a level I've been playing for years, and it's all because of this stupid controller. But despite all my rage, I got 3 measly stars and ran far away from the mountains as fast as I could. Tiny Huge Island was next, and I honestly don't have a lot to say about it. It was easy to bump into ledges a fair bit as this big Italian boy, but besides that, it was pretty much just a slightly harder Womp's Fortress. Only got 3 stars here, could have easily gotten more, but I was ready to wrap it up at this point. Now we're in the final area with the heavy hitters, and I'm first greeted by Tick-Tock Clock, one of the most platform-heavy and vertical-orientated courses in the whole game. Even with the platforms frozen, which is the only way this is possible by the way, there was still the task of getting across so many tight platforms over a giant death pit. This course was a disaster waiting to happen, but thankfully, it never did. Sure, this 8 red coin star was annoying as can be, but I was able to complete some other missions very easily with how close they were to the start of the area. Lucky me, I have another 3 stars down, and only 3 more to go. But all that would have to be attained in the final course, Rainbow Ride, and this rainbow would not be so merciful. So let me paint out the first big issue here. The carpets are impossible to ride, and that's due to an issue that I haven't discussed since it wasn't a bother until now. This controller drifts. It beat Nintendo to the curve 20 years in advance, and it's just as annoying here as it is on the Switch. So since the carpets are literally impossible to ride on, that only leaves me with 3 stars total to collect. I'm grateful I have at least 3 stars available, but that means I have to go for them no matter what. No matter how much these moving and falling platforms drove me insane. This is what I was afraid Tick-Tock Clock was gonna be. Bumping into platforms that can't stay still and falling to my death. Over and over and over again. And even when I got it past once, I had to do it again for the next star. I died over and over and over again. I know it's fun to exaggerate my anger and play it up for the video, but it was seriously draining to play with this controller and fail at what I usually would say are easy stars to get. This controller takes my favorite game of all time and does something I hate to say it does well. It makes it not fun. Sure, maybe I could have chosen a different game and maybe it would have hurt a lot less, but why wouldn't I tackle a game I'm best at? Doesn't that emphasize my point the best? to say that this controller is terrible enough to make my favorite game almost feel like garbage? You know what? No, I love this game, and I will never let some outdated tech ruin it for me. I got this far, and I was gonna go the distance. That's the last star. Ooh, we're on to the 70 stars. 70 stars officially in the palm of my sore, plastic-bound hand. This alone would have been satisfying enough. I probably did more than anyone has ever done on this controller, but you know that's not how it's gonna end. It's gonna end with Bowser in the sky, the final course in the whole game. To say I wasn't ready for it would be a complete lie. At this point, I was completely in the zone, and I was ready to take this challenge to the finish line. One attempt is all that this course took me. One beautiful attempt. This is why I play Mario 64. I feel so powerful and skilled even with these setbacks, but that hype would have to subside. The green pipe beckoned me, and Bowser waited for the final battle. And then, the run fell apart. Now you may be confused why I'm immediately throwing the towel here. Bowser is just as easy as any other fight, and you're completely right. Even the new moves like raining down fire wouldn't be able to stop me. That wasn't the issue. The issue is when I got 2 hits on him and had to land for the final throw. In order to get the final throw off successfully, I have to land a fully charged throw. I need to land a fully charged throw. Only possible by rotating the joystick rapidly in quick succession, while also being able to time it onto a bomb. That was literally impossible. No, I don't mean it was too hard. It was literally undoable with the controller's limitations. This controller was not designed to handle full 360-degree movements, so when it's expected to handle very fast 360-degree motions, it literally cannot be done. Even if I build enough speed to have a fully charged throw, I need to land it, and I can't do that accurately because I have to press the B button while my hand is flailing around. So many technically undoable tasks that need to be performed all at once, and it really just came down to a matter of chance. After dozens of attempts, dozens of throws, I threw in the towel. And you know what? I was serious about it this time. It's not a joke. I was actually done playing. I would have ended the run here and we would just go to conclusions, but I was told by my friends I need to give it another shot and it would be cool, so in a voice chat I just decided to give it another go. Like that would be any different, right? No way! No way! Did I nail it? I got it! Don't hit Bowser, because I will die. Oh. Alright, I just gotta grab it. I am free of this curse! Well, Bowser was down for the final time. Super Mario 64 has now been beaten from start to finish with the glove for what may be the only time in recorded video game history. This was a painful and very much not fun playthrough of the game, but reaching the end here was more satisfying than it has ever been, and that made it worth it. I will say I do have a newfound appreciation for the glove. It is really unlike any controller I've ever used, and its awkward feel is something I could say will only be achieved on this original hardware. Uniqueness aside, This is a novelty item, and it should only be treated as such nowadays. I highly recommend to never play through any game with this controller. It may sound fun to be the first to beat Ocarina of Time with the glove or beat Star Fox 64 with the glove, but it's really not worth the mental frustration and physical pain you will go through trying to attempt it. All I could say closing this adventure out is to respect the controllers that you have now. They may be basic and might have something you don't like, but they're built in a way to be easy and comfortable to use at all times. Like this? This is a controller made to be used to enjoy any kind of video game you play with it in your hands. This was made as a cheap thrill in the 90s. Now if you excuse me, I'm gonna go get some ice. I'm very sore. Okay. Oh, that feels so good. Okay. Alright, I feel better. I think, though, it's your turn.